Hey, happy Saturday, everybody, and happy October 1st. If it doesn't feel like fall yet by you, then it's going to feel that way pretty soon. Even some of my friends down in Florida that just endured that horrible hurricane that came through their neck of the woods are talking about cooler temperatures, which is really a blessing because there's a lot of folks that are without electricity down there right now, which means no air conditioning. So the cooler temperatures could not be any better timed down in that area. And now the folks on the East Coast are having to get exposed to the same horrors of that awful storm, which hopefully will go away real quick. But welcome again to another live stream. This is going to be an unboxing, which as you're looking at the workbench right now, you're saying, wait a second, that doesn't look like an unboxing unless it already happened. Well, this is the reality. Let me go ahead and mute this for a second. This is the reality of the workshop. I will get a project like this that's going towards finalization. This particular Centennial featherweight that is going to be eventually heading to Agency, Missouri, to Thalia, a sweetheart of a gal that also just opened a quilting shop as well out in her neck of the woods. They're involved in all kinds of fun stuff out there in Missouri from some of the posts that I've seen that Thalia has made. But this little beautiful Centennial featherweight has been waiting for her day for some time now, as other machines have made their way down that long line to the workbenches. This is what's happening on this workbench right now, but now we need to change it because we have this machine that came from JR out in Redmond, Oregon, but it didn't start there. As the title of this live stream will indicate, JR's machine actually started also out in Missouri. And it went all the way from, wait, I'm wrong. It did not start in Missouri. It started in Kansas. So we are in Kansas still. Yeah. So it starts out in Wichita, Kansas. Starts in Wichita, Kansas. I can't even say it. And he purchased this machine through Goodwill Online. So the machine is shipped from Wichita, Kansas to Redmond, Oregon. And he goes, wait, put the brakes on. I didn't want the machine to be shipped to Redmond, Oregon. I wanted it to go directly to Scott in Oconto, Wisconsin. So the machine then goes from Redmond, Oregon, after being in Kansas, all the way to the workshop so that we could unbox it today. And if you're curious about what kind of machine it is, I'll give you a big clue. I'll give you a huge clue. It has something to do with this guy right here. Yeah. So if you know anything, you know where this guy might be from, this one right here, then you might know the origin of the machine that we're going to be unboxing today. Yeah. So boy, this box has gotten a workout all the way from Kansas to Oregon, all the way to Wisconsin, and eventually all the way back to Oregon again. If anyone is really bored, really bored, and you want to do a travel summary as far as miles, it starts in Wichita, Kansas. It goes to Redmond, Oregon, and then it comes all the way to the workshop in Oconto, Wisconsin. How far has this machine already traveled, and it hasn't even left the box yet? How far? I'm just curious. Yeah. But for right now, I need to work on getting Thalia's Centennial. Talk about a breathtaking machine. And no, it didn't look like this when it first started its journey at the workshop. A lot of work has gone into this princess of singers already. And I know Thalia said, Scott, certain days just drag on in Missouri. Certain days just drag on, and I got nothing to look forward to. I've got a beautiful family. I'm so blessed, but certain days you just wake up and you go, okay, what can I look forward to today? She said, this little featherweight has been my breath of fresh air every day. If I've got a little bit of an overcast day, if I'm feeling just a little bit blue or whatever, or the kids have been extra, tenacious as kids can be. She says, I always can look forward to that featherweight arriving to me out here in Missouri. Yeah, I can. So we're so close now. And I was moving forward with this. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, doggone it. We need to unbox this machine that started in Wichita, Kansas, went to Redmond, Oregon, and then traveled all the way to Oconto, Wisconsin. We got to do it. We got to do it. And Thalia is such a sweetheart. She goes, no problem. No problem. So let's get this workbench clear so that we can unbox this machine that has made such a long journey already. Such a long journey. Yeah. All right. Some more music while we're waiting for this to happen. This song, I got to tell you the title, Tubby, Tubby. I have no idea why. But this apparently is a Tubby song. Yeah. All right, let's get busy. Let's get this workbench cleared so we can move on to the next phase of this unboxing. All right. Okay, so we've got the workbench clear. Thalia's Centennial featherweight has been moved to the side. This happens all the time. And then I'll have customers that will pop in from Joanne's out of Marinette, Wisconsin, which I'm always glad to have them pop in. And so we'll shift something to the side. We'll focus on something. We'll get that done. And then we'll focus back on the other thing again. So it's step forward, step back, step forward, step back, step forward, step back, step forward. the nature of the workshop. You got to be flexible. So a little bit more music. Let's keep this going. Hey, let me know in the live chat. Been having issues with the audio with this Razor camera. This is a really good camera. High def, all that sort of thing. But the audio is wonky on it. So let me know if you're able to hear music in the background along with my voice. If you could in the chat, just type in the chat, yep, I can hear the music, or no music, I can just hear your voice, or whatever. And we'll get going on this unboxing. Well, if anyone wants to venture a guess in the live chat as to what model and make this might be, I gave you a big clue with this guy right here. And if you're brand new to this channel and you go, all right, who's the funny little guy? I have no idea. This is the King of Sweden. So that might give you a big clue as far as where the origin of this machine might be from originally. The King of Sweden. Yep. Oh, good. Thank you, Matthew and Kathy. Thank you to Matthew and Kathy. Yeah, I upgraded to this camera. Let me just quiet this for a second. I upgraded to this camera because the other one that I had just was not able to get the job done. So I did a lot of research. I looked at, people that do a lot of live streaming, and they really want, primo quality video, primo quality audio. And everybody seemed to be pointing at the Razor live stream type camera. So that's what I got. And a lot of great feedback initially. And then a couple of folks said, you talk about the music, but we can't hear the music. And I shut the music off right now. So if you can't hear it, that's okay. But I'm going to continue to work with this camera. Hopefully it gets the job done and we can have some success with it. Good, good. So Matthew and Kathy, I appreciate that so that I know that it's working. I'm going to turn the music back on and let's get to this unboxing. Again, if you're joining the live stream a little bit late, this poor box starts at Goodwill online, and Goodwill sells a lot of great machines that are donated to them. I mean, people have found some incredible treasures, and lots of them, instead of having Goodwill, whether it's Goodwill out in Wichita, Kansas, or whether it's Goodwill in Michigan, wherever it is, a lot of these buyers will say to Goodwill, don't send it to me. Don't send it to me. Send it to the workshop in Oconto, Wisconsin. And that way, Scott, here I am. Scott has a chance to check the machine out and make sure it's good to go before I ever sit down to the machine. I don't want to sit down to the machine and start with disappointment. I don't want to sit down to the machine and all of a sudden, start trying to stitch and something just breaks on it, or something, is grinding, or there's sparks coming off of it. Believe it or not, that's happened too. So they say, just send it directly to Oconto, Wisconsin, which is great. I don't mind getting machines like that at all. Well, this machine, somehow the communication between JR, who lives in Redmond, Oregon, saying to them, don't ship it to me. Somehow that communication circle wasn't a circle. It stopped right about there. And so Goodwill ends up shipping it to JR out in Redmond, Washington. Well, JR is a cross-country truck driver. He's all over the place. He goes from coast to coast. So he gets back after one of his long hauls, after one of his long trips, and there is this box sitting at his place. And he goes, doggone it, I didn't want the machine to come here. So then he has to go to his shipping location and ship the machine from Redmond, Washington, Redmond, Oregon. If I said Redmond, Washington, Redmond, Oregon, I'm in the wrong state. So he gets back to Redmond, Oregon, and sees the box sitting there, and then he has to go through the steps of packing it up to shipping it all the way to the workshop here in Oconto, Wisconsin. And that's where I said if anyone wanted to do the math for fun, you know, from Wichita, Kansas to Redmond, Oregon, all the way to Oconto, sorry, Your Majesty, all the way to Oconto, Wisconsin. How far has this box traveled already? I mean, that seems like a lot of miles to me, doesn't it? Wichita, Kansas, Redmond, Oregon, Oconto, Wisconsin. And eventually it's going to be going all the way back to Redmond, Oregon again. So, wow, weird, isn't it? Weird. Yeah, totally weird. Oh, hey, welcome to Madeline as well. Welcome to Osman. And it looks Osman is from another country. If anyone wants to take a swing at figuring out what language Osman typed, so we can, you know, make this individual feel welcome to this live stream, that would be awesome. I've had people do that before. They use Google Translate. They'll kind of copy and paste whatever Osman typed, and then they'll help to make that individual feel welcome. Wouldn't you want that to be the case if you joined a live stream that was in another country and all you could communicate in is in English, and all of a sudden someone from that country in that audience jumps in and makes you feel welcome so you can understand what's being said and you can feel like you're a part of it? So if someone wants to take that on, wow, I would be really grateful. That would be super cool. And if you want to reach out after the live stream, if you help out at that level, then I'm going to send you something special, some special surprise from the workshop. So if someone feels comfortable with Google Translate, jump in and make that happen as we begin this unboxing. Again, a box that's traveled a crazy distance already, and we haven't even opened it yet. Yeah, haven't even opened it yet. I love it. Steven goes, I want to see if it's one of the machines that I bid on Goodwill.com, Goodwill Online or whatever, and I was outbid on it. I love Steve's sense of humor. He's like, maybe it's a machine I missed out on. It might be, Steve. I don't know, brother. I don't know. We'll find out. Oh, that's fun. Oh, okay. So Osman is from the great country of Turkey. The great country of Turkey. Isn't it great? Isn't it fun when we all of a sudden discover that people around the world love vintage sewing machines just like we do? Just like we do. It doesn't matter. Like in the last live stream that we wrapped up and Emma was there, just near the end of the live stream, we have somebody join us from Vietnam. I'm not joking. Now we have this wonderful person that has joined us from the great country of Turkey. People from around the world share our love and passion of vintage sewing machines, just like the one we're about to unbox that started in Wichita, Kansas, went to Redmond, Oregon, and now is in Oconto, Wisconsin. Blah! That's crazy. Crazy. Yeah. All right. So welcome to our friend from the great country of Turkey and to everyone else that's joining this live stream. Welcome, 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 welcome. All right, more music and let's get going on this. Let's get this done. This next one is called Freedom. Let's put some freedom on. Yeah. A little bit of freedom music. Yeah. So those of you that are first on this channel, you know with the King of Sweden that this machine has origins or roots reaching back to the great country of Sweden. It's a Swedish beauty of some sort. We just don't know what type. So let's see if we can uncover that mystery right now for this machine that has made such a long journey already to get to Oconto, Wisconsin. Wow. And again, whenever you're opening up a box, it might seem common sense, but when we get anxious, if we, like Steve, if we bid on a machine, we were outbid on it, or we won it, or whatever, when that machine arrives, we're excited to see what's inside that box. But take it slow. Take it slow. If you're using a cutter like this to open the box, make sure you adjust that blade so that it's not too long and you don't cut too deep and damage the contents. So I always set my blade pretty short just so I can cut through the tape without cutting anything on the other side. Another funny part of this story on this machine we're about to unbox is JR. I already shared with you he's a cross-country truck driver, right? So JR is like driving. He could be starting out in Oregon and then go all the way down to Texas, or traveling all the way out to Baltimore or Philadelphia. Well, he happened to be out in Philadelphia when he remembered that he didn't enclose the deposit to start the project on this machine. So he goes, I'm going to get it to you. I'm going to mail it from the Philly area, the Philadelphia area. So he gives it to the clerk at the truck stop and he says, could you make sure that this gets mailed to Scott out in Wisconsin? And the clerk says, not a problem. Well, the interesting story is eventually the payment did arrive, but you could see on the envelope it was postmarked North Carolina. We still don't know how that happened, how it was given to a clerk in Philadelphia and then eventually mailed from North Carolina. Yeah, one of those mysteries we're never going to know. JR doesn't know. I don't know. The clerk knows, but it's still a mystery. Yeah. All right, let's get this done. Oh, and welcome to Emma as well. Welcome to Emma. It's always fun to have new folks, isn't it? Find out where they're from, whether it's our friend from the country of Turkey or wherever you're from. Welcome. It's so great to have you here. Okay, so we're getting closer. And I don't know if any of you, it sounds like Steve has bid on machines on Goodwill online, Goodwill, wherever it is, Goodwill, whether it's in Kansas or Michigan, they have Goodwill online all over the country. And they got some primo machines that will pop up that people have donated. Have any of you, apart from Steve, bid on machines or won machines through the Goodwill network? I'm just curious. So we've got these bubble packs starting on top. I'll kind of give you a closer look. Got these bubble packs. Now I can tell you most of these are already popped. They're already flat. So I don't know if this is a single chamber type bubble wrap that's on top of here, but be careful of your packing materials, because if it's a single chamber, if one of these pops, that entire panel is gone. There's no protection. No protection whatsoever. And that's kind of what's happened here on top. And either on the bottom or the top of the container is going to be the most likely area that machine's going to take the biggest hits. So just be mindful of that as you're picking packing materials. You know, these are just, they're gone. There's no protection. It's just a thin piece of plastic now. So keep that in mind as you're choosing your packing materials, or as you're working with a seller, giving them input and saying, you know, pick some good packing materials. Yes, this vintage sewing machine is metal, but It's fragile. It can break. Machines are cast steel, and those castings have little air pockets throughout them, and they can easily crack. So take the extra effort to pick some quality packing materials. Take that extra time and make that extra investment. It's going to pay off in the end. It's going to pay off in the end. It really will. All right, so we kind of have a box within a box. I'm going to cut this down the side and open up this flap on the top so we can take this inside box out more easily. Osman has a very good sense of humor. He's hoping for a rabbit to pop out of here. I don't think it's going to happen, my friend. I don't think we're going to have a rabbit pop out of here. I hope not, especially after the long journey that this box has taken. That rabbit might need CPR. That rabbit might need CPR after going from Wichita, Kansas to Oregon and then finally to Wisconsin. Yeah, long journey. All right, so we're going to open up this flap and get this inside box out. So some more of this bubble type wrap here. This panel's a little bit better. It's not as damaged, and that makes sense because when this box is traveling from Kansas to Oregon and then finally all the way to Wisconsin, most of the impact on this box is going to be on the top and on the bottom. So, but at least they tried. At least they tried. They didn't put it all the way across. I don't know why, but at least they added some padding to here. I'm just going to set this to the side for a second on the ground. I'm going to give you a look at the inside. You can see it there. So again, I love when people make an effort to try to protect the vintage sewing machine. And this again all started in Wichita, Kansas. So the folks in Wichita, Kansas said, we recognize that it's a well-made sewing machine, but we're going to do what we can to try to protect it. Little did they know that it was going to travel from Wichita, Kansas, all the way to Oregon, only to come all the way back to Wisconsin. So I'm glad that they took these steps to try to protect the machine. I wouldn't say that this is the best method, but it's better than nothing. That's for doggone sure. That's for doggone sure. Let me get this out of the way. Let's work on the main box. So here's our primary box. Pretty poor corrugation. If you could feel it with your own hands, it's real thin gauge cardboard. And again, cardboard is not equal across the board. You'll have some that they're very rugged, they're very sturdy boxes. They're going to afford a lot of protection. And again, the big risk with cardboard, either the outside or inside, is that it can get a punch through. You know, as this box is being transported all of those miles, a lot of things are going to impact that box. And so you want the thickest corrugation possible so that if somehow it takes a hit, it's less likely to punch all the way through. You saw that recent unboxing we did on this channel, and the corrugation on that box was so poor that the pedestal feet of that sewing machine punched all the way through the bottom of the box. Remember that one? If not, you can go back and look at one of the recent unboxings. You'll see what I'm talking about. I got to get a quick drink of Diet Coke. Haha, we got Matthew hooked. Matthew is checking out Goodwill online right now. Checking it out right now. Yeah, I mean,
Goodwill does a lot of wonderful community programs, and a lot of people in different parts of the country know that. They support a number of community-based programs that benefit disadvantaged folks, folks that are challenged with different handicaps or whatever it is. And they also hire a number of these individuals as well to work in their stores, in their distribution centers. And that takes money, doesn't it? And I know that some people have criticized some of these organizations for some of their big shots getting big salaries. And I'm not going to go into that, because they need to be their own stewards of their resources and manage them in a proper way. I'll just leave it at that. But Goodwill does a lot of good. And so when Matthew or anyone decides, I'm going to check out their sewing machines, and they find a treasure that someone has donated, what a blessing. What a wonderful thing to have happen. But again, I would strongly encourage you, because the people at Goodwill are not restorers, they're not collectors, they're not skilled technicians. And when they take a machine in, what they get is what you get. And some of these machines have been very, very poorly maintained. I'm just being honest. They've been very poorly maintained. So take that step like JR tried to do and say, when you win that auction, Goodwill is more than willing to do it. They do it all over the country. I've got machines from Michigan, from Oregon, from Washington State, from all over the place, from Texas. So if you say to them, do not ship it to me, ship it to the workshop so Scott can make sure it's good to go, they'll do that for you. Just really, really make that message clear so that what happens to JR doesn't happen to you. And it goes all the way out to you, only to come all the way back to Wisconsin. That's extra cost and extra risk to that machine with all of the extra travel. Does that make sense? I think it does. So yeah, just do that. Win an auction, and then have it sent directly here. Hey, welcome to Sunny too. Welcome, Sunny, Sunny, Sunny. All right, let's keep working on this unboxing. I got to get a little bit of groove in. It's October 1st, y'all. I love fall. I don't know about you, but I love fall. The cooler temperatures, the leaves changing. Yeah, it's worth a little dance. It really is. Holy mackerel. It looks like we have a box within a box within a box. You know what? Our friend from Turkey might be right. We might have a rabbit in here. You never know. Well, you guys know we're always trying to make things better, right? We're always trying to improve on things. We're always trying to take processes, whether it's how machines are serviced and maintained and restored, to how we pack our machines. We're always trying to make it better. This is not the greatest packing method. Let me show you. See, the packing has not been great up to this point. And now we take a little bit of this bubble wrap that was just kind of tossed on top. See that? And now we have a single layer of bubble wrap, sort of kind of on this machine, but not really. And now we've got the machine already there. We already have the machine here. So learn from other people's mistakes. Goodwill is a great organization, but they're very busy. Imagine how many items they're trying to pack from their online auctions. But they got to take extra time. You got to take extra time. If you're buying something from Goodwill, you can even point them to this YouTube channel underneath the playlist
of how to pack a vintage sewing machine and at least show it to them. Say, this is how to do it. Because right here, you've got this plastic case, you got the machine right on the other side, and we don't really have much in the way of protection, do we? This is kind of a disappointment. Some of the Goodwill stores have done really well, like the ones in Michigan, in using some of our packing methods. This one obviously didn't do that. Yeah, they could do better. They could do a lot better. Don't you agree? They could do better. Because here we've got the machine already right there. So we're going to get it out of this box. We're going to take the machine out. We'll see how it did. Sometimes our vintage sewing machine fairies really look out for machines and really protect them, even though all the odds were against them. All the odds were against them. But I have also gotten cases that have just been literally cracked down the side because of poor packing. So hopefully this is one of those good ending stories. Good ending stories. Let's hope. Let's hope. All right, let me set that down for a second. Set this down over here and get a little bit more music on.
Yeah, bubble wrap, unless it's really packed in there snug around the machine, all it is window dressing. It doesn't do any good. So if you're shipping a machine, don't make the same mistakes that we saw in this packing today. So imagine this box starts out in Wichita, Kansas, and it goes from Wichita, Kansas, all the way to Redmond, Oregon, and then all the way back to Wisconsin. Look at how much protection is on the bottom of this machine as it's bouncing against cement floors and metal beds of trucks and everything else. Grab the camera, show you.
That is so little protection to keep this machine safe. And I say it all the time, even if we get this out of here and there's no apparent damage on the outside, as I dig into this machine, I might discover damage on the inside, because as this is banging against concrete and against metal beds of trucks and everything, that shock wave goes from the bottom of this box, this very thin box that was inside of another thin box, and it goes all the way through that machine. And again, some of these Husqvarnas that were a little bit later in time are going to have plastic parts inside of them too. So that's an unknown until I actually get this onto the workbench and actually start servicing it. But this is definitely not adequate. It's such a poor protection on the bottom of this inside box. It should be about this thick, at least a good 1.5 to 2 inches on the bottom, so that machine can ride on a cushion. Right now, imagine this hitting the floor or hitting the cement hard enough. This is going to be making direct contact with the bottom of this box, and that shock wave is going to be going through this machine. So again, not to be critical of anyone or to be mean-spirited, but let's learn from other people's mistakes and do better. Let's do better. Yeah, we definitely can do better. Uh-oh. See what I'm talking about? See these again, totally popped. See that? There's no air left in them at all. So we can definitely do better than this. And if JR decides to reach out to the folks in Wichita, Kansas at Goodwill, again, not in a mean way, but in a voice of opportunity, you know, pack the vintage sewing machines better than they've done. They can definitely do better. So if there's any guesses on what model this might be, it's obviously a Husqvarna. What model do you think this machine might be? I'm just checking to see if there's any other parts that were broken off of the machine, like the ones that I showed you a little bit ago. It looks like we're pretty good on the bottom now. All right, let me get this out of the way and we'll get the machine up on the workbench now. Yeah, I always say when it comes to packing, you've got to hope for the best, but plan for the worst. You've got to hope for the best, but you have to, where am I? You've got to hope for the best when you're shipping a sewing machine or when you're having machines shipped to you. Let's say you win one of the Goodwill online auctions. We're always hoping for the best, but we also have to prepare for the worst. And that starts with that seller being responsible and taking the time to pack their items in an appropriate way. You know, especially when you have a machine like this that's in a plastic case, you're putting it inside of a cardboard box, and it's going to be traveling originally from Wichita, Kansas to Redmond, Oregon. That by itself is probably a little bit of a journey, but then it ends up going from Redmond, Oregon all the way to Wisconsin. That's a lot of miles. And if you don't pack it well, inevitably, something's going to happen to that machine. So, you know, if you buy a machine online, don't be so shy that you're not willing to say to that organization, you know, I've had bad experiences with machines arriving destroyed. Everyone has the false impression that a vintage sewing machine, especially the all metal ones, they're indestructible. Nothing is further from the truth. Those machines are cast metal. When you cast metal, there's lots of little air pockets. I've shown you guys that. Matter of fact, I'll show you again what can happen. This machine came from Montana, and it's real close to the front of the line. It's real close to the front of the line. This machine belongs to, I've got to remind myself, this machine belongs to Kathy Green from the great state of Montana. As a matter of fact, I might have seen a Kathy in the live chat today. Maybe that's our Kathy Green. I don't know. But this machine, all metal, right? Indestructible, right?
Well, not necessarily so. Not necessarily so. Because when you introduce a cast all metal machine to concrete or to metal beds, stuff like this can happen. And if you look at this real carefully, you can see the tiny little air pockets in there. And that's the reality of a cast metal machine, is if it's exposed to extreme impact, dropped on a metal floor, falls off a conveyor belt and lands 6 feet down on a cement floor in a transit area or something like that, stuff like this can happen. And then all of a sudden you've got a machine that otherwise was perfect that can get extreme damage like this to it. When I'm done with this machine, it'll be like it never happened. But still, it's heartbreaking to that owner when all of a sudden they see damage like this to a machine, especially if it has a lot of sentimental value. So this is where you can avoid the heartache. You can avoid the horrible pit in your stomach, as you're wondering, is Goodwill going to pack my machine well? This beautiful, gorgeous machine that I found online, and I got it for a great price, so I can afford to send it onto the workshop and have Scott do his magic to it, and then only to get it arriving in a catastrophic condition like this. So avoid all that. Avoid it. And put your foot down with that seller and say, doggone it, I've made an investment in this machine, and I want you to pack it right so that something like this doesn't happen. Or something like this that we saw today in the bottom of the box with JR's machine. Yeah. So yeah, be a wise buyer and don't be afraid to put your foot down. All right, some more music. Let's finish looking at this machine that has had a long pilgrimage already. Too many crickets. Okay, let's get this to the side. All right, a little bit more music. Let's get this machine up here and see how we did. Oh, I totally got it wrong. It's called Shop Goodwill. ShopGoodwill.com. I'm assuming it's one site and then all the different Goodwill locations all post their stuff there. I've never really been on the ShopGoodwill.com site before, but if you want to check it out, you certainly can. I've got to be a little naughty and put some tape over the model number so that you can have a little bit more fun trying to guess what model this machine is that JR won on ShopGoodwill.com in Wichita, Kansas. And then it ended up in Oregon, and now it's all the way back in Wisconsin. So let's see. Sonny doesn't collect doodads, apparently. Whatever a doodad is, it must be like a whatchamacallit or a thingamajig. And I'm glad we don't collect crystal thingamajigs either. I like vintage sewing machines much better. Okay, now I can move this. And I'll show you these lids are cool. They've got these little latching mechanisms that will anchor to the edge of the machine and kind of hold it in place. This one is broken off, so you know you want to be careful with any lids, because they can let loose unexpectedly, and then all of a sudden you can have your machine fall to the ground. So never trust lids completely. Now, I have to say, this is a fun foot controller. Look at this puppy. If you've ever if you've had some different Singer machines and you've got that little button style original Bakelite controller, and I know that some of you have come up with adaptations where you can come up with a different way of depressing that button by putting a piece over the top of it. They even sell them online, apparently. But this is a foot controller that really doesn't need any supplement to it. It's like a bus pedal, isn't it? Quite nice. Very, very nice. Now I'm going to ask you a quick trivia question without knowing necessarily what specific model this is. Do you know what series this is within the Husqvarna evolution of machines? What series does this machine fall under? This is a big clue right here. This is a big clue right here. Any guesses? I'll give you a big clue. I'll give you a real clue. The first in this series was the Viking 2000, the Husqvarna 2000, that came out right around 1960. 1960 was the first in this series, and it came out with the Viking Husqvarna Model 2000. So if you want to Google Model 2000, what kind of machine is that, or what series did it come from, then you'll know what series this machine came from much, much later down the road. Much later down the road. But isn't this a gorgeous color? Hopefully you can see that with this fancy Razor live stream camera that I'm using. It's just a beautiful, beautiful. What color is this? What color would you describe this as? I mean, there's so many ways to describe a color when you see it, isn't there? Let me get you closer to it so you can see it even more clearly. And we'll get the King of Sweden over by this machine as well. But I think it's a lovely color, don't you? Isn't that pretty? What a spectacular patina on that machine. Well, Sonny, I'm looking at Sonny's comment above. Sonny couldn't be any more right. Our dear friend Hans from Norway loves Swedish beauties. And he spent a lot of time with us. And then he had some family issues and health issues that came up. And sadly, Hans had to step away from us. But I tried to stay in contact with him as much as I'm able. But Hans, living right next door to Sweden, would travel to Sweden and pick up machines sometimes. Yes, I envy him big time. But he would know right away probably what model this is. He might know right away. Yeah. Emma is guessing a model 6460. A model 6460, and she's describing this as ruby colored. Do you agree with Emma? Is this ruby, or would you describe it as a different color? I just think it's gorgeous, don't you? Yeah. Yeah, I like Billy Bob's brick red. Yeah. Yeah. I like brick red. Maybe it's a ruby brick red, but it's gorgeous. I love the color. Wow. Wow.
And they're so thoughtful in their design. Look at, they even give us centimeters and inches measuring across the bottom of the bed here. We don't need a tape measure. We can measure our fabric right against this. All right, let me rotate this around a little bit, give you a closer look at it, at this gorgeous machine. And once we know the model, if someone wants to look up the approximate year of manufacture for this, that would be totally cool. I can tell you it's definitely later than the 1960s. Yeah. Oh, Kathy. Burnt oranges. That's pretty sexy. I like that color too. So we've got burnt orange, we've got brick red, we've got ruby. See what I'm saying? We can learn from each other. There's so many ways to describe that is gorgeous, isn't there? There's so many ways to describe it. Yeah, I love all of your ideas. All of your ideas are spot on. Ooh, fun little switches on the side. Look at this. On-off switch. Speed reduction. We also have the speed reduction through here as well. Isn't that fun? Isn't that fun? So we've got a damaged presser foot lever and our lifter. Check this out. Watch that presser foot right here. And this is what I was talking about. Some of you might have been a little bit skeptical initially when I was talking about how vital packing is and how something from the outside can look okay, but as you dig into the machine, all of a sudden the reality of the shock wave that our vintage sewing machines are exposed to when they're in transit becomes a reality. And here we've got a busted take-up lever. The lever is moving, but there's no response to the foot. Did this happen in transit? I would suspect it very well did, but it's hard to know because I wasn't at that auction. I didn't read what Goodwill said about this machine. Sometimes they'll say tested. Tested to most organizations that take donations in like this is they plugged it in, they hit this really cool foot controller, this one right here, and the needle went up and down. Or maybe they heard the motor come on. To them, that's tested. That's tested. That's certainly not tested to us, is it? Our standards are so much higher than that. Testing to us is going through it with a fine tooth comb. Testing to us is using a surgical approach like I do in the workshop, where we go from bobbin to balance wheel and we check everything. We make sure everything is spot on. And then again, that's the benefit. If you buy something on Goodwill and you have them send it directly to the workshop, you don't have to worry about all that. You can get a machine back knowing that everything is perfect on it. So this will be a repair for sure. I saw a little bit of movement that time, so maybe it's just a matter of that we've got a stickiness issue in here and maybe something broken. But when you see things like this in the bottom of the box, like I showed you, I get my little fingers on it. And there might be more things in the bottom of the machine too. But when you see things like this in the bottom of the box, when a machine has been shipped to you, it doesn't right away raise the bar of confidence, does it? It raises the bar of anxiety. What's busted? What else am I going to find when I take the bottom of this machine off? Take this base off, and I get into this area of the machine right here. Am I going to find other parts? Or when I shake this machine, am I going to find other parts that are broken loose on the inside? Again, a machine of this vintage is going to have plastic parts in it. They actually started that back in the 1950s, even with some of the class 20s. And they refer to it in different ways. They don't call it plastic. Plastic sounds cheap, doesn't it? They call it Teflon. What are some of the other terms they use in substitution for the word plastic? You guys are so smart. Throw some other words into the live chat that describe plastic, but they use different words to describe it. Maybe polymer. Is polymer another one of those terms that they sometimes use to describe? We're not using plastic, doggone it. We're using blah, blah, blah. And then they come up with their own flavor of blah, blah, blah. So you guys know what I'm talking about. You're smart. So we'll see what happens. We're definitely having issues with the presser foot right now. And let's hope that it's not something broken. It's just that the machine is utterly filthy on the inside. And this is not having free mobility. And that's why I sometimes get notes from people that say, oh, wow, welcome to Christina from the great country of Brazil. If y'all didn't know that, Christina, that just popped up in the bottom of the live chat right now, is from Brazil. So again, it opens up our eyes to our family that shares a love and passion of vintage sewing machines. We've got a gentleman all the way from Turkey. We've got Christina popping in now from Brazil. Our last live stream, we had somebody pop in from Vietnam. All around the world, we have brothers and sisters in our space of vintage sewing machines that love what we love. How cool is that? How wonderful is that? Yeah. So let me turn this a little bit more. And I'll just point out real quick here on the faceplate, this is our presser foot controller right here. A little bit more up. This is our presser foot controller right here to increase or decrease pressure. Kind of walk you around the machine real quick as we learn a little bit more about JR's machine. Here we've got upper tension control. This easy threading method on this particular model is really cool. And then we've got potentially access to all of these cam generated stitches. Cam A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and finally H. And that was really the love of this series of machine. And some of you already nailed it. This particular series that was first introduced in 1960 with the Model 2000. The Model 2000 was the very first in this series of colormatic machines. And the whole philosophy in Sweden was, we make beautiful machines. We make well-engineered machines. This is my attempt to sound Swedish, and don't judge it. Don't judge it. I'm doing the best I can. But we build beautiful machines. We build them strong. We make them capable. Now we need to make them easy. We need to make them easy, or even more easy to use for our customers. So they came up with this Colormatic series, and it was as simple as matching a color on each of these knobs. This is going to be your cam selection over here. For general selection, it's going to be your stitch selector, as you will. This is going to be your stitch length, and your reverse. This is going to be your stitch width down here. So if you wanted to, say on cam A, let's say we wanted to stitch this yellow stitch right here. And I forget what this is called. It's maybe a rickrack or something or whatever it's called. But let's say we wanted to do this yellow stitch and we have cam A in the back of the machine. Then it was as simple as turning this to yellow, turning this to yellow within that range, and then setting this on yellow down here on the stitch width. And then it magically would stitch this stitch right here. So that was the Colormatic thing that came out in 1960. And right away, the customer loved it because it was still the well-engineered, well-built machine from Sweden, but now it was even easier to choose that stitch that you wanted, that stitch pattern. Simple as putting that cam in the back, whatever cam it was, and then choosing those colors to match that stitch that you wanted. Yeah. So the Swedish were not only smart engineers and great designers, but they also listened to their customer base. How many companies today don't listen to their customers and they pay the price for it? They develop a product that they think is really cool, and their customers say, nope, we don't like it. And then they have warehouses full of these crappy designs that the customers did not fall in love with. That was not the case with the Swedish folks over in Sweden. They listened, they designed, they redesigned, and they came up with great machines like, and now I'm going to finally take off this painter's tape that's so annoying to some of you. Why do you do that, Scott? Why do you do that? Why do you do that? Why do you do that? And we can finally reveal, what model is this? Emma guessed a while back. Was she right? She came really close. This particular model is the Viking Electronic. How fun is that? Model 6570. So if any of you people that love researching and you're super duper smart, you can go to the Husqvarna primary website and they show a lineage of their machines and when they came out. And you can certainly search other places as well. But if someone wants to come up with a ballpark of when did this Viking Electronic 6570 come on the scene, even if it's a bracket from this year to that year, whatever, type it in the chat. And if you reach out after this live stream, I'll send you something special for doing that research on our behalf. Yes, I will. We know that there were a lot of machines in the 6000 series, but what about this 6570? When did it come on the scene? Yeah, when did it come on the scene? I'd like to know. Wouldn't you like to know? Yeah. Now the question is, do we risk? See, now we're getting some ray of hope from this presser foot. Getting some ray of hope. I don't think it's broken. I think it's filthy. And that again is when you buy something from Goodwill online, you're going to get what they get. They're not going to invest any time in doing deep cleaning like I do in the workshop on these machines. You've seen all the still shots on Facebook, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of machines that have been serviced with my exclusive deep cleaning method. And it makes all the difference in the world. I think that's what this machine desperately needs. And thank goodness it's in the right spot here in the workshop to get that special treatment. As some of you affectionately refer to it, my machine's going to get a spa day. Yeah, it is. It's going to get a spa day off the charts. So I wonder when this machine would have come on the scene. Yeah, don't you? Yeah. Holy mackerel. Jiminy crickets. Leaping lizards. Our friend from Turkey jumped all over this. Our friend from Turkey is like Johnny on the spot, as we say in the US. That means a person that sees an opportunity and doesn't pause, go, well, I wonder, maybe, and they just go, wow, wow, and they just go after it. So our friend from Turkey, and if someone wants to fact check, I love fact checkers. People that will see somebody post something in a live chat and say, I just want to make sure it's right. Because we're a classroom where we learn from each other and we don't want to have bad information. And that's not to second guess our friend in Turkey that says 1976. Not at all. It's just to do our due diligence. It goes back to President Ronald Reagan, that when he was in dealings with our friends in Russia, and by the way, people watch this channel in Russia as well. I'm not making that up. We've got a lot of people that share our love of vintage sewing machines in Russia. But President Ronald Reagan, who I had the chance to meet when I was at West Point Military Academy, what a man, what an incredible man. Wow. He said, by all means, trust. But type the word in the chat if you remember what President Ronald Reagan said. He was dealing with the Russians, and they were trying to deal with disarmament and all kinds of other political stuff. And he said, it's not that I don't trust the Russians, but I need to, and he used a word. I'll give you a big hint. It started with V. It started with V. So we can trust each other, but we also need to, and that's the magic word I'm looking for. Type it in the chat if you know what President Reagan said. Yeah. What I was going to say is, should we try plugging this in? Why not, huh? The cord looks good. The foot controller looks fine. Balance wheel is sort of kind of moving. It's real stiff, if you could feel this machine. What do you think of that wrap job? Isn't that fancy? I mean, I feel like I want to contact NASA right now and say to NASA, all right, how do I unbundle this thing? Is there just like a single cord that you pull and then all of a sudden it comes apart? I really admire people that go to this effort. It's almost an art form where they wrap a cord like this. They're like, no, I don't need a rubber band. Thanks anyway. Nope, I don't need a twist tie. I don't need a zip tie or anything like that. I'm going to be my own zip tire. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do because it's how I roll. Holy mackerel. That is, I almost feel like I want to take a picture of it before I get this thing loose, if I get it loose. Yeah, Billy Bob nailed it. Billy Bob nailed it. And there were some other very, very good, very solid guesses as to what President Ronald Reagan said. He said, trust but verify, trust but verify. And that's what I want you to be as students in this classroom and as fellow teachers. I always say that you're not just a student. I learn from you just as much as you learn from me. That makes us fellow teachers and fellow students. I always say it, sometimes a teacher, always, 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 always a student. We're always learning. But as we learn, we have to realize that some of the stuff we read out there is just totally wrong. You get that in some of the Facebook groups. You get that on some of the other blogs that you might visit online. And somebody will type something about the history of Husqvarna, and it's absolutely incorrect. And people will just leave it out there. It's like Wikipedia, where someone decides, no, I'm going to put my own truth in there. So we have to be not only trusting of what we read, we have to verify it as well. Absolutely. Well done, Billy Bob. Well done. I like vigilant too. We have to be vigilant verifiers. I like that answer too. So not only do we start with trust as a baseline, but then we vigilantly verify information. And I want you to do the same thing with the information that I share with you. I try to be a very good steward and a very, very honest broker when it comes to sharing the truths of VSM. But I might mess up sometimes. And then one of you can circle back and say, you know what? I think you got that wrong. And I will be the first one to stand up and say, I got it wrong. And thank goodness we're vigilantly verifying what's out there so we can then step forward as fellow teachers from this classroom and teach people right. Teach people right so that they can embrace VSM not only as a passion, but as a truth, right? Am I right or wrong? I think I'm right. Yeah. Definitely. All right, let's put on some more music. It's been, all you've heard is my blah, blah, blah. Enough blah, blah, blah. Music, please. apparently I was feeling mellow. Some of this music is just downright mellow, isn't it? Holy mackerel. Let's step it up. This is especially dramatic, suspenseful music. Listen to it. As we get ready to plug this in and see what happens. And yes, I've got a fire extinguisher nearby just in case. Hold on. Holy mackerel. What a wrapping method. Holy Jiminy crickets. Somebody at Goodwill was feeling a little hostile, I think. All right, we're not going to pack the machine really well, but we're going to wrap that cord so it takes him 45 minutes on a live stream to get that puppy loose. Yeah. Holy mackerel. Inside, outside, left, right. It's like origami with a cord. All right, set that right there. Now, interestingly, this does not have a rating on it. Most foot controllers will always have a rating on the bottom. All this gives us is a type FR number. Let me just bring that down for a second. All this gives us is a type FR number, which is 710. So if you have a model 6570 and you're looking for a foot controller that should be compatible with your machine, you're going to want to make sure that on the bottom of that foot controller like this, that it has type FR 710. And then the number, the model number for this is 8003. I don't know if you can see that in the shot or not. A little bit hard to see, isn't it? And when I go through this machine, I'm also going to be servicing this foot controller as well. You can't service a machine and a motor without servicing the foot controller, because the foot controller acts as a gateway for the energy flowing into that machine to reach that motor and to power that machine. If this is deficient or filthy, I've found spider nests and I found foot controllers similar to this packed out with cat hair or dog hair or just filth and rust and everything else. If this gateway is filthy and not optimized, the rest of the machine will never, ever, ever, ever perform at its highest level. It's not going to happen, because this is the gateway that allows that machine to reach greatness. So if you have a foot controller like this and you've never pulled the bottom off, do it. If you have a similar foot controller like this for another Swedish beauty, make sure you get into that foot controller, do a thorough cleaning. Always, 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 and again, this is common sense, but always make sure that that machine is not energized when you service or you do anything to the foot controller. With this being the gateway for the electricity flowing into the machine, it's fully charged, which means you can get a real bad shock off of it if you take this cover off and you have that machine plugged in. So be aware of that straight away. And believe it or not, and this may not surprise some of you, because a lot of people say common sense is not common, but I've had people write me with a revolutionary statement of, I didn't realize I could get shocked off of my foot controller. I took the back off and I was just going to do a little bit of cleaning on it, and I got zapped. Okay, I won't even dignify that by, I'll let you guys type in the live chat what you might think of someone that whatever. Well, at any rate, yeah, don't have it powered up. Don't have it powered up, please. All right. So I'm going to plug this in now, and we'll see what happens. So we've got a working light. That's good news. And again, if you've got one of these old incandescent type bulbs in your Swedish Beauty, know that there's a better way. There's a lot of LED options now that will work with the Husqvarnas, the FOFs, and pretty much any model that's going to have a twist-in style bulb like this. I better grab it quick before it gets too hot. Any machine that takes a twist-in style like this that has the two little pins on either side, you kind of stick it in, you turn it, you lock it in place. They've got LED options now, and you can buy them online. You can buy them at Home Depot. You can buy them all over the place. But the benefit of transitioning from an incandescent style bulb like this to an LED bulb is a lot less heat. Some of you probably, like me, have even gotten burned on some of the housings that are metal, especially on the front of the machines, and you'll accidentally touch it after you've had the machine light on for a while. It gets downright hot. You can get burned off of it. Not to mention if your sewing space in your home or otherwise is a small space and not incredibly well ventilated, and you're in those summer months, a little bulb like this can generate so much heat, it'll blow your mind. So when you go from incandescent to LED, you lower that heat factor dramatically, and you increase the looms, the brightness, at least 4 to 6 fold. And again, not all LED bulbs are equal. When you look at LED bulbs online, look and see how many little nodes, I think that's what those are called. It's little individual light squares that are on that LED bulb. The more LED nodes or whatever that is called, the brighter that bulb is going to be. So not all LED bulbs are equal either. I've had a number of customers say to me when they ship the machine, I've already put an LED bulb in that you encouraged us to do. And then I look at their LED and it has like 12 nodes on it. And then I'll put one of mine in and I'll shoot them a little video and I'll say, what do you think? They say, put mine in a bag and ship it back to me. Put yours in. So just be aware that you can make that transition and still not have the best brightness on your bed and down at the needle. So pick your LED bulb very carefully, or send your machine here and I'll be glad to put one in when I service your machine, whether you get it on Goodwill online or wherever you have gotten your machine from. So good news is our light works. Yay. Get that back into place. Now let's see what happens when we push the foot controller. I'll put a little bit of dramatic music on. Oh, welcome to Mermaider. What a fun name that is. I went to Minnesota to meet with some customers that want to buy value for auction. That's kind of redundant, isn't it? Evaluate machines for value for auction. Anyway, I went there to help them know how much these machines were worth. And had a chance to go to Mall of America and go to that really cool sea display thingy that they have there in the Mall of America. And when they were doing a special mermaid presentation, and had a chance to wave at the mermaid, and she blew me bubbles, and the bubbles came out of her mouth, not her. Yeah, at any rate, it was really a cool thing. If you've never seen the Mall of America, if you've never gone to the equivalent of like a Sea World type thing that they have going on there, it's well worth the trip. Well worth the trip. It's very cool. But I thought of that when I saw the name in the live chat right now of Mermaider. Mermaider. Oh, and welcome to my dear local friend, Renee, who's joining us right now on this live stream. It's so great to meet local folks, isn't it? Have an interest, even if they've never sewed in their life, but they're like, I think the machines are gorgeous. And Scott, I love your sense of humor and the way you present things. You're just fun. You make it entertaining. And whenever we learn something and it's fun, it's a world of difference, isn't it? It's such a world of difference to have fun while we're learning. You might remember that teacher back when you were in kindergarten or elementary school, and they were a fun teacher. You might not remember what you learned, but you remember you had fun learning it. And that's what I try to do in our classroom. And a lot of you will bring fun as well. Kind of like our friend from Turkey that said, while we were unboxing this machine, I wonder if we're going to get a rabbit that pops out. You never know. I told you about that one featherweight that one time that came out of Arizona. And all of a sudden, I open up the faceplate and something creepy and crawly crawls out of there. I'm not making it up. It was the most disgusting Arizona little creature thing, whatever, that I've ever seen in my life. Nothing against our friend in Arizona. Our friends in Arizona have a beautiful place to live, but they also have some creepy, crawly critters, just like our friends down in Florida and Louisiana. They'll be the first ones to admit that they have bugs in Florida and they have bugs and critters in Arizona that should be like in the Guinness Book of World Records or Ripley's Believe It or Not or something like that. Just like, are you kidding me? Why did God make that thing? Why did he make it? Yeah, I wonder. So here we got our foot controller, and I'm just kind of looking down inside of there, and I can see right away this thing is filthy. But I want to find out, is our electricity reaching the foot controller? So I'm going to grab my little tester real quick before we push it, just to see what happens. I'll put on some music as well. I hope you guys are doing okay. One of my screens, I've got an error that popped up. Could someone type in the live chat if you can still see what's going on here? If we're still live and you can see what I'm doing, just type it in the live chat, would you? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, and on my cell phone, I'll sometimes have a secondary screen open because when I'm changing out music and stuff, I'll lose my visibility of what's happening on the workbench here. So I've got that little second screen as kind of a backup, and it said there was an error 503 or something like that. And it's not like a nonprofit organization error. Although that is a funny paradox, isn't it? That all of a sudden I would get an error 503 on my phone, and we're dealing with a machine that came from a 503, what is it, a 503c3 or something like that for nonprofits? I think so. So we're going to see if we can test it. This, if you've never seen one of these, you can get them at your local hardware store. They're called a voltage detector. And it's really important to have these because let's say you buy a house and running through the rafters in the basement area is all of the old wiring, like for Spectrum or Time Warner or whatever it is. Some of those cables look very much like electrical cables. And so it's important that you check a cord before you try cutting it, because otherwise you could get hurt very seriously. So I always use this just to check for voltage. We're going to do that on this now and see what we get. So we know that the electricity is reaching this gateway of the foot controller, which is great news. I've had sometimes where there's a break in the cord or the plug-in point itself is damaged, and all of a sudden we won't get anything. But keep your fingers crossed, nothing horrific happens. We've got our bases covered. We've got our extinguisher right here. If something does go south, plus I'll be able to unplug it very quickly. And let's just hope we get some movement from this machine. Let's hope, let's hope, let's hope. I picked music today. This is horrible. This next one is called Mitigating Suffering. What is this one about? What an interesting title for a song, Mitigated Suffering. Yeah. All right, here we go. I've got to silence the music. I love this song. I love this song, but I got to silence the music because I want you to hear what this Swedish beauty sounds like right now. Because eventually I'm going to live stream this before I send this back to Redmond, Oregon. And it's going to sound a lot different. Hold on a second. Silence, please. All right, give this a listen. I'm going to get you really, really close to the machine. This is not how a Swedish beauty should sound. Not even close. You hear that thumping sound? That's not good. All right, let's eliminate the possibility that part of it is being generated by this bobbin case. We'll take the bobbin case out. You can still hear that thumping, and you can't smell it through the camera, but I'm also, so we're not going to test this machine much further right now. I don't want to make things worse for whatever's going inside. Yeah, it's not just a hot smell, it's actually a burnt smell. That's not good. That's definitely not good. Hear that thumping sound? If your Swedish beauty sounds like that, know that that's not the way it's supposed to sound. Oh yeah, I can smell off the back of, I've actually had some machines I presented to you where you can actually see the smoke plumes coming out, but this is so well encased that I'm not seeing any smoke plumes coming out, but I can smell a smoky smell coming from the motor that wasn't there before. It wasn't there before. Oh, and I totally messed up. As I was taking this out of the box, I said that this was a power up, power down. This is a needle up, needle down. This is a needle up, needle down. This is just a power on to turn the machine on. There are some machines made by the Italians that have a switch. It's like a power up switch that allows you to control the power output of the motor in lieu of one like this that you pull out to gear it down. Again, the Swedish beauties have a unique feature. It's called a slow gear that will take that motor from full speed all the way down to 1/5 when you pull this assembly out. So all of a sudden you go from a racing machine to a machine that you can manage very, very tight turns and corners with when you gear it down to 1/5 the speed. It doesn't change the power. Again, we were talking about trust but verify. There's a lot of misinformation out there about this slow gear increasing the power of the machine. That does not happen. That's not the case. When it's in like this, you're going full speed. When it's out like this, you're taking it from full speed down to 1/5. You've got the same amperage motor. You've got the same motor output. It just gears it down and slows the machine down so that you're able to manage that machine more effectively. And you're able to have more control over your sewing path. So if you see anybody writing that crap out there about, get yourself a Swedish beauty, it's got this power thing, you pull it out and you get more power. You get more power. You don't get more power, you Jiminy Cricket knuckleheads. You get no more power. What you get is you get more control. If this machine comes with a 1 amp motor, which it probably does, you're always going to have 1 amp of power. Yep, there it is right there. 120 volts, 1 amps. by pulling this out over here, you're not all of a sudden going to get 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 amps. And then you can say, see, my machine has the same power as your green machines that are labeled a 1.5 amp motor. That's my answer to you. No, it doesn't. It's got 1 amp here. It's got 1 amp there, just like the machine is labeled right there. So don't buy that information as fact. Verify it, and you're going to find straight away that it's wrong information. But 1 amps is still going to give you a lot of juice, especially after I go through and I service this motor, tear it apart, service it from the inside out. You're going to get the full 1 amps from this Swedish beauty, the full 1 amps. Just trying to look in the back of the machine real quick. The other risk you have, I'm just checking real quick. The other risk you have with 6000 series machines is they have a plastic cam stack that the cams snap into. I'm going to try to get you real close so you can see it if you've never seen one before. That little disc near the back there, just beyond, you kind of look beyond this stem and follow it back. That little disc right there is plastic, or you can call it polymer, or whatever word you want to call with it. But they chronically in the 6000 series, they crack. And then it requires an additional repair. And they crack all the time. I've replaced so many cam stacks on 6000 series machines. If I had a dime for every one, I would jingle when I walked. Yes, I would. And right at a first glance, the cam stack appears to be, just double checking, it's got a little notch near the top, but it doesn't look like it's broken through, which is great news, because this would add, obviously, cost to the project for the customer. And I try to keep the cost down as much as I can. I truly do. So that's good news. So I'm not going to operate this machine anymore right now. It does, by Goodwill standards, it does work, which means that the needle goes up and down. Well, when it's turned on, it does. The needle does go up and down, but it needs a lot of attention, doesn't it? Plus, I'm going to go through the machine and find out where these parts came off of on the machine in transit. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being a part of this unboxing today and kind of joining me on a busy Saturday. I know that all of you are busy, especially our friends down in Florida and now on the East Coast as they're exposed to this horrible hurricane. And I know a lot of you have been keeping folks in thought and prayer. Some of you have friends in those areas as well. And that makes it even more real, doesn't it? But, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Watch things. I've got more machines that still have to be unboxed, more machines that are en route right now coming to the workshop. They have to be unboxed as well. And I've got to get Thalia's Centennial Featherweight back on this workbench and get this one put in line waiting to be serviced so that Thalia can get her machine out in Missouri. She's been very patiently waiting. And then I've got another local customer. If you look at this other machine on this other workbench, this is known as the big sister to the Featherweight. The big sister to the Featherweight. Hold on a second. I'm going to put some more music on while we wrap this up. This is the big sister to the Featherweight, the 301, which, if you don't know, was only made 1 year out in, let me set the camera down for a second. It was only made 1 year out in Elizabethport, New Jersey. It was first introduced right around 1952. So this machine was first introduced in 1952, and then it went away. They stopped making it. It was only made 1 year, the 301. And then they started making the 301A just a year later in 1953 until 1957. And if everyone talks about wanting to have a featherweight. Everyone wants to have a featherweight. Everybody. But I always say to folks, and by the way, this machine didn't look this gorgeous when it landed on the workbench. It's been down in the paint shop. But everyone always wants a featherweight, right? I want a featherweight. I want a featherweight. I want a featherweight because they're so rare. I hate hearing that. I've said it to you guys before on live streams and on videos. It annoys the heck out of me when these featherweight people will talk about how rare their featherweight is. Unless you're talking about a 222K that was made for 8 years and they only made 100,000 of them over in Kilbowie, Scotland. Don't talk to me about your featherweight being rare. It's not. It's not rare compared even to this 301. The 301, again, was only made in 1952 in Elizabethport, New Jersey. And during that time frame, they only made 185,750 of them. 185,750 compared to the 3.5 million featherweights that they made over the course of the active production time for that particular model. So if you own a 301 and you've kind of been holding your head down a little bit saying, well, it's not a featherweight. It's not as rare as a featherweight. That's a bunch of malarkey. It's more rare than a featherweight. Not to mention, it's the big sister to the featherweight, is how I many years ago started referring to this model. And now people around the world talk about the big sister to the featherweight. You see how much influence we have through our simple little YouTube channel and through our little classroom? All of you can have just as much influence in your circles with the knowledge that you gain through, I'm knocking things over. Hold on a second. You can have just as much influence in your circles by sharing knowledge. There we go. Finally got it moved. By sharing knowledge gained through our setting, and not just from me, but from all of us. So if you didn't know that your 301 was incredibly rare, now you do. More rare than any featherweight out there, with the exception maybe of a crinkle finish featherweight. If you ever come across a crinkle finish featherweight, let me know. If you just think it's cool and you're not really interested in purchasing it, let me know. I told you the story about a crinkle finish featherweight with my friend WK down in Tulsa, Oklahoma. You guys remember that story? You guys remember that story or not? And a crinkle finish featherweight, again is going to have that textured Godzilla type finish to it. It's going to look very different than this shiny, beautiful finish that you see on this 301. So if you don't remember that story, WK is running a museum, an interactive museum down in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He has a lady come in and she's in a real bad situation. I think she was in an abusive relationship. She's now living, basically on the streets. The only thing she has of value is a little sewing machine that she has held onto for some time now. Doesn't know what it's worth, but if she gets a couple $100, she can probably get back on her feet, at least until she can get another job. And WK invites her to bring the machine in, not knowing what it's going to be. Well, it turns out to be a crinkle finish featherweight. They only made about 100 of them. Singer only made about 100 of these machines. And she wants a couple $100 for it. So he takes it out of this, basically a grocery bag that she carries it in with. And he says to her, ma'am, I can't give you a couple $100 for this machine. She starts to tear up. She starts to tear up because she's like, oh my gosh, this was my last hope. It's the only thing that I potentially have of value left in the world to try to get myself back on my feet, to try to start my life again. He says, ma'am, I can't give you a couple $100 for this machine,
But if you'll entrust it to me, I'd like to show it to my group of fellow sewists down here in Oklahoma. And I'd like to get back to you on what I can get you for it. Matter of fact, if I can get a fair price for it, well above what you're looking for, is it okay if I sell it? She says, yes, absolutely. So he goes to his sewist group. And these are good Oklahoma people. They do what's right. They walk the talk. They talk the talk. You know what I'm saying? I said that wrong. They talk the talk and they walk the walk down in Oklahoma. These are good people. And he calls her back about a week later. And she comes in with her head kind of down. And she said, you weren't able to sell it, were you? He said, yes, ma'am, I was able to sell it. And I got well above your asking price. Does anyone want to type in the chat what he got for this crinkle finish featherweight that they only made about 100 of or so? Type in the chat if you want to venture a guess what my friend WK, who is a man of integrity and could have taken advantage of this lady, what did he sell that crinkle finish featherweight to one of his fellow sewists in his little group down there in Tulsa, Oklahoma? Type in the chat what you think he got for it. Yeah, type in the chat. Come on, somebody venture a guess. Hey, G. Alexander, welcome. Good to see you, G. Alexander. Okay, Sunny's one of the smartest gals that I ever met, and I think her guess would make total sense. This lady's looking for a couple $100 to get her life back on track, right? She just wants a couple $100 and she would be happy as a clam. And if she got $2,000 for a crinkle finish featherweight, you think she'd be happy? Yeah, she would. But Sunny, I got to tell you, she got a lot more than that. Let me type in the chat what my friend WK got for that machine and didn't take a penny of it for himself. Didn't take a penny of it for himself. I just typed it in the chat, and that is gospel truth. This lady walks in with a machine. He could have taken advantage of her, could have paid her a couple $100 for the machine. She would have left not knowing, just as happy as she would have been otherwise. But instead, he was a man of integrity. He went to his group of sewists and said, I've got this incredibly rare crinkle finish featherweight. Who's willing to pay a fair price? And by the way, you're going to be helping this lady out get back on her feet and start a new life after having a lot of abuse in her life. A lot of bad things happened to her. And he sold it for $7,000. And when she came back after a week, that same bag that had the machine in it when she walked in with it a week earlier, now had a stockpile of cash, all in $100 bills, to the total of $7,000. And the machine was just sitting, he brought the machine back because the sewist said, yep, take it back just in case something goes south with this sale or whatever. She just welled up and could not stop thanking him for being so honest. So I would say, if you're on goodwill.com or you're on Facebook Marketplace, you're going to come across somebody that has a treasure. It might not be a crinkle finish featherweight, but you can make a decision. Yes, you want the machine at a good price, but do you also want to have integrity in the sale and not totally take advantage of someone? Maybe this is a daughter that's lost her mom and doesn't know what she has. Maybe this is a granddaughter that gets this machine from her aunt that passes away, doesn't know what she has. You can still get a heck of a deal, but you can still be fair. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Get a great deal, but be fair. Be fair to other people you're dealing with, because it's going to come back to you. It's going to come back to you, because that lady, after getting that money safely to the bank, and he took some steps to make sure that she wasn't just wandering down the street with $7,000 in cash. I think he sent somebody with her and got her to the bank safely, got it deposited, got it safely. She circles back a week after that and comes back with a cashier's check for $1,000. Something that WK never expected, never asked for, but she said, "You were so fair and so kind to me in not taking advantage of me. I know that your museum runs off of donations, and I want to give this $1,000 back to you to help you with your mission here." You see what I'm saying? Doing the right thing always comes back to you. And I love telling that story, because it speaks to the core values of the way I try to do business. And I hope it's the way you do business as well. Yeah. So anyway, enough blah, blah, blah. And I'm showing you this machine and showing you this machine and showing this machine, talking about how rare this machine is compared to a featherweight. But I had to share that featherweight story with you from WK down in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So again, if you've got a 301, you've got a treasure. Know that. Made only 1 year by the Singer Sewing Machine Company in 1952, and they only made 185,750 of these machines. And then it was a year later in 1953 that they came out at a different manufacturing plant in Anderson, South Carolina, and they introduced the 301A, that on the badge mark down here will have an A on it. And that just tells you it came from a different manufacturing point. They made that machine for about 4 years, from 1953 to 1957, the 301A, not this machine, the 301A. And during that time period of making it for 4 years, does anyone want to guess how many 301As they made at Anderson, South Carolina plant? Again, the big sister to the featherweight, not the original's big sister. This is the original big sister, made only in 1952, the 301. But then the bigger sister, I don't know if she was a bigger sister or not, but the bigger sister came out in 1953 in Anderson, South Carolina. And God bless the people in South Carolina, North Carolina right now, because they're getting some of the wrath of that horrible tornado right now, aren't they? So keep them in thought and prayer. But how many machines in Anderson, South Carolina, the 301A, do you think they made in that 4-year period? Again, running from about 1953 to 1957. Throw a guess out there. Don't be shy. How many machines did they make over 4 years in Anderson, South Carolina, from 1953 to 1957 for the 301A? I'm going to look at the chat real quick, see what y'all are guessing. Hey, Mickey Potts. Welcome, Mickey Potts. I love that name. That's just fun. That's just fun. So Sonny's guessing around 650. They made more than 650 of the 301As at the Anderson, South Carolina, after they discontinued making the 301 at the Elizabethport, New Jersey plant, after making it just 1 year in 1952. So that's a cool thing. If you have a 301 and it doesn't have an A after it here, you never have to guess when that machine was made, because they only made this machine 1 year in 1952. And again, they only made 185,750 of them, more rare than the featherweight any day of the week. So the 301A in Anderson, South Carolina, they made it for 4 years, 1953 till 1957. They made about 514,250. 514,250. So they made more than, well, they made about 4 times more 301As than they did the 301s, about 4 times more. And I'm not a mathematician, y'all know that, but they made about 4 times more of the 301 Series A's in Anderson, South Carolina than they did in Elizabethport, New Jersey. Now that number is pretty big, right? 514,250, right? That's a lot of sewing machines. But when you compare it to the 3.5 million featherweights that they made, it's still more rare than a featherweight. So whether you have a 301 or a 301A, your machine is more rare than any featherweight out there, other than that crinkle finish one that WK had the rare opportunity to have come into his museum and was able to help that lady out. So if you're in any of these groups and you've ever had your head kind of down as people are talking about, oh yeah, I've got a featherweight. Oh yeah, I've got a blue featherweight. Oh yeah, I've got a red featherweight. Oh yeah, I've got a centennial featherweight. Even as cool as the centennial featherweight that I'm in the final prep of getting ready for Thalia right now from the great state of Missouri, even as incredibly amazing that centennial featherweight is in sheer numbers of production, even that centennial featherweight, which would have been made obviously in 1951, a year before this machine would have been made, it's not as rare as these 301 series big sister to the featherweight machines are. I hope that that hits home with you if you are in a situation where you might own a 301 or a 301A, and you've always, in some of these groups that you're a part of, you've always had your head down a little bit, almost apologetically, like, no, I don't have a featherweight yet, but maybe someday I'll be as cool as you guys. You are cooler than them if you've got a 301 or a 301A. So raise your head high and start to chuckle a little bit when some of these folks in these featherweight circles, where they think they have like a secret handshake, all of a sudden will start bragging about their featherweight this and featherweight that and featherweight this, because you know you have a machine more rare than any of the featherweights for the most part that they could bring to the surface. All right, yeah, all right, I can blah, blah, blah all day long. You guys know that. Blah, 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 blah. Whole purpose this was to unbox this really cool model 6570, which our friend from Turkey tells us is from right around 1976. Right around 1976. But hopefully all this other information I shared with you as well expands your toolbox of knowledge. And now you'll take it out to those circles that you're involved in and spread the news and spread the knowledge. That's what it's all about. Knowledge is worth share, 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 share. Yeah, music, and then I'll let you guys wrap up your conversations and get back to enjoying your weekend. Happy October 1st. Happy fall. And again, it's so much an honor to have you be a part of our classroom on this YouTube channel. So cool. So cool. All right. Give me something to jam to. Give me some jamming music. Give me something. No. That's interesting. Ooh, yeah. That's weird. No. Okay, I got to play this one because the name of this song is literally November, and we got November just around the corner. So enjoy this song. Enjoy meeting some new folks if you're in the chat. God bless you, and thank you so much. Thank you so much for being a part of the Cow Country family. You guys are awesome. Awesome. Yeah, you are. This is like a Russian waltz. I gotta change it. I want something peppier. Come on, give me something peppy. Give me something peppy to. Yeah, this will work. This will work. All right, we'll see you guys next time. Adios, Bill.
Yeah.